fire has already destroyed the financial, religious and legal centres of the city and over 13,000 homes. It now has its sights on the most important fortress in the country, the Tower of London. I'm meeting historian Professor Ronald Hutton from the University of Bristol. Ronald, why is it so important to stop the fire getting to the Tower of London?
Because it's the biggest government munitions store in the entire country. There are hundreds of barrels of gunpowder there. If the fire detonates those, it'll be like a low-level nuclear device. All the housing for miles around, all the shipping in the Port of London and London Bridge are going to vanish in a flash.
And Londoners wait with bated breath to see if fire breaks can save the tower. How did they stop the fire from reaching the Tower of London?
They demolished the housing near the tower with gunpowder and create level scorched earth between the flames and the tower. Ironically, gunpowder is used to save the gunpowder.
Once the firefighters realised that gunpowder could create fire breaks more quickly, they were able to contain the fire and prevent a far worse tragedy. The tower was safe. London had been saved from a massive explosion, but death was still stalking the streets of the city. By Wednesday afternoon, tearing down whole streets and clearing the rubble to make fire breaks is beginning to work. But that wasn't all slowing the spread of the fire. Around 4 in the afternoon, after 4 days of terrible gales, the wind that had been fanning the flames finally dropped. The fire lost its brutal ferocity. Little by little, house by house, the Great Fire came under control as the falling wind and the fire breaks did their work. One place that shows where the fire was extinguished is Merchant Taylors' Hall in Threadneedle Street, the trade guild that represented tailors. Much of the building was gutted by the flames. This beautiful hall dates from after the Great Fire of London, and one reason for that is because it was all destroyed during the fire. But the room holds one incredible secret, and to find it, you've got to look behind this wooden panelling. Now, if you come in here, you can still see the old medieval walls and ceiling of old Merchant Taylors' Hall. And on that side, everything survived the fire. But on this side, everything was destroyed. So I'm actually standing on the limit of where the fire reached. This is the point where the Great Fire of London stopped. Although the fire had rampaged through London, it had actually spared a lot of the city's hospitals, including the one here at Smithfield, St Bartholomew's, or as we call it today, St Bart's. Now, we know from eyewitness accounts that men were turning up here wounded and sick, presumably with very serious burns, and they were treated with a variety of extraordinary remedies.
At the time of the Great Fire, modern medicine didn't exist. Medical care was still based on ancient theories and herbal remedies administered by the pharmacists of the day, apothecaries. People at home also concocted their own treatments using plants, honey, and even snails. The Royal College of Physicians has a collection of handwritten books containing remedies for burns that would have been used during the Great Fire. I'm meeting Dr. Henry Oakley.
I've got one recipe here. Against a burn or scald, first to fetch out the fire.
Fetch out the fire means fetch out the heat, to remove the pain.
OK. Apply the juice of the dung of a horse at grass. So there's a bit of horse dung juice there. Oh, it really is quite powerful. Would this have had any benefit to a burn?
This would be full of bacteria. If you put this on Anything more than just a superficial scald would cause you to have septicemia and you'd be dead in a few days.
So rather than treating the burn, you'd actually cause it more harm?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's in one of the recipe books.
Back in 1666, one of the other recipes featured ground ivy. I'm going to have a go at mixing up the treatment myself.
Boil the juice of Gilgoy by ground, which is a type of ivy.
Ground ivy, yes.
Called alehoof, in cream till it comes to an oil and apply it till it be whole. So we have some alehoof or
Yes.
ground ivy here. Let's try that.
Alehoof would remove scabs and things like that. So you put it on and it would help get rid of those incrustations. So you'd have pink raw flesh, which would heal up nicely.
I grind down the ivy until it produces an oil and mix it with cream to form a paste.
It says go on putting this on until the burn is whole.
So if I get a little bit out of here,
Yes, stick it on.
get that on there. Let's pretend I have a burn here on my wrist.
Yes, you could apply this to it like that.
But these recipes weren't always accurately written down. This one actually recommends the wrong ivy.
Am I safe with this on here now? I should have asked this earlier.
I would wipe it off now if I was you.
Fair enough.
Another remedy looks a bit more promising. It suggests using poppy sap, otherwise known as morphine, mixed with the sap from poplar trees.
Poplar ointment would still be effective to this day. The pain of the burn would have been well dealt with by morphine, and the sap of the poplar tree would be sterile, have no bacteria in it, and it would resist infection.
That sounds a lot more applicable than our horse dung juice.
Absolutely.
Welcome back. And finally, we've moved forward a few months from all the terrible destruction. The flames are out, the wounded are being tended to, and care for the vast number of refugees is actually surprisingly well organised. It's time for London to look to the future, to rebuild itself from the ashes. The city had learned a hard lesson from the damage caused by the Great Fire. From now on, stronger fire regulations came into force, and there was more control over home building. New houses had to be made from brick and not from flammable timber. Wooden window frames were no longer allowed to jut out from walls, and wooden jetties like this one, they were banned to stop flames leaping across narrow streets. The number of stories a house could have was also restricted. For the first time, London had elegant rows of brick terraced houses. Now there's a house down this street I really want to show you. It's number 5 to 6 Crane Court. It's brick built, it's flat fronted, it's a world away from those Tudor, timber framed, higgledy-piggledy houses of old London. And there's a reason for that, because this place originally dates to 1670. It was built by Nicholas Barban, the man who started London's first fire insurance company. This uniform, flat-fronted look became fashionable all over the country, with elegant terraces in places like Bath and Brighton. Britain was changing. London's physical layout altered as well, as I found out when I met up with Professor Ronald Hutton. Ronald, how did the Great Fire change London's landscape?
Well, there is no London anymore. London is buried under 6 feet of charred rubble. Some of this can be shipped upriver and dumped, but most of it is spread across what have been the houses and the streets to level the ground, and that prepares the way for the rebuilding.
And who were the key characters behind the rebuilding?
Well, my hero is a guy called Robert Hooke, who is just a brilliant surveyor, and realising the priority is to get the city working again, he rapidly goes out with planning, cordoning off, plotting, and this means the city gets rebuilt with amazing speed.
So presumably this was a great opportunity to reimagine London.
Oh, it certainly was.
Thanks to the skill of planners like Robert Hooke, incredibly, just 10 years after the Great Fire, most of the city was up and running again. These days, London is a bustling hub of activity, as it has been for centuries. The old houses and churches now overshadowed by office blocks and skyscrapers.